Everyone's ready. All right. Hello and welcome to our third cast roundtable summarizing the episodes of Outlast. We have our next 4 eliminated players that we haven't talked with yet: Eric, Taylor, Kim, and Mike. So you will hear spoilers from the merge episodes forward. If you haven't watched those yet, you may want to hold off and watch this at a later time. But really excited to catch up with the 4 of you. I think you were some of the most dynamic players we've had and some really interesting characters. So I'm really excited to hear your sides, your perspective. A lot of big moments centered around things that you all did or were a part of. So I'm excited to discuss those. First, I'm just kind of everyone go around. You apply for Outlast. We hear a little bit about everyone's strategy, but we don't obviously capture your whole mission going in. So I'm just gonna have everyone go around, introduce yourself, and say, like, going into Outlast, here's kind of what I was thinking. Here's what my strategy was. Taylor, I'm gonna start with you because you are a previous winner. And that was brought up a little bit on the show. So knowing that you've won a game, going into another game, I know what this experience is like, right? So what's a strategy going into a new game, knowing that you've won a game?
So going into this game, the difference for me was I had actually watched Survivor before playing Outlast. So I kind of had a similar strategy, knowing that I was going to be more of like an under the radar player and try to do my best in challenges. So that's like as deep as my strategy went, which is not the greatest, but that's what my plan for the game was.
All right, great. Kim, you've also played before, but haven't won just yet. So how much did your first game kind of affect your strategy coming into Outlast?
It affected my strategy significantly. I think my first experience playing, I was lucky enough to make an amazing alliance that I thought drove me most of the way forward. Thank you so much, Justin. That was great.
Who was that?
And that was definitely an experience that I was looking to repeat, in the sense that I really felt like not only did I have a #1 alliance, but I also had a team of maybe less of a #1, but still very strong allies, which I did feel like I found here. Didn't take me quite as far this time, but I did have it for a moment. Camelot did exist for a brief moment. But I also was hoping to come in playing it a little bit more under the radar, trying to be a little bit more quiet at camp, trying to just not be so much of like a mouthpiece and a focus in the group. Whether I successfully did that, I think, is entirely up to your own interpretation, but that was where my mindset was going in.
And let's just set the record straight, Kim. Did you come in second place in the game that you played previously?
I did not, and I'd like to make that very clear to you, Taylor. I was not in second place. I was in 4th place, but thank you so much for elevating my status there. I'm sure it did a lot for how far I went.
Awesome. And I think Eric and Mike, correct me if I'm wrong, this was your first time playing live games, right? So Eric, for you going into a live game brand new, obviously I think you have a little bit of experience kind of watching Survivor, knowing what Survivor is, but what was your strategy as a brand new player?
Yeah, going into the game, I had played one other one. It was the even nerdier one, I like to call it, the Genius, for any really big reality TV fans who know that South Korean show. That's how I got into this whole scene. I was like, I can't resist an opportunity to play this obscure game. And coming into the game, I've always had a theory. Well, first of all, let me just say, people don't believe me. I'm playing this for the confessionals. Like, I love entertaining. I'm a class clown, and that really is like the most fun part of the game for me, is watching it back and trying to, like, be funny. And so I'm not going to sacrifice that to try to play under the radar. I don't think I ever could. And in the other game I played, and in all the social deception games I play with my friends, I know what I'm like, man. I know I'm going to be a big target every time I play. There's no use hiding it or anything. It's just like I'm over the top. I think other people are really capable of dialing that back, and I know that I don't have it in me. So my strategy was to come in, try to find someone I could be really tight with. Like, I want to find that one person, that's always my goal, who thinks like somewhat the same way I do, and you can like really do damage together. I'm a player who'd be happy to go to the end with literally anybody. I don't care. So I'm wanting to find the strongest players and go to the end with them. And I tried to do that, and I tried to have fun, and I did one of those 2 things. So not bad.
All right, so we had a little bit of experience, but not Survivor experience. But then I think, Mike, you're fresh, right? Like, this is your first live game of any kind ever, right?
Yeah, it was my first ever live game. I played about 4 online games, and I was kind of done with that. And I'm a huge Survivor fan, so playing a live game to me was the ultimate thing. I was super pumped when you casted me, and I kind of tried doing the opposite of what Eric tried to do. I like to build bonds with strong people early on in the game, but I don't want anybody to look at me and think I'm a threat, whether that's socially, physically, mentally. I kind of hold my game on relationships. I really like to get like 2 or 3 people early on that could always say, I'm going to trust Mike. So I really hold my hat on the social game aspect, and I want them to always be bigger targets out there that people are going to say, let's vote that person instead of Mike. So it's tough for me when I play because I love sports. I love being athletic. I love showing off like what I could do. But in a game like Survivor, that's a negative thing, right? So I always have to like hush in my personality. I could be loud, I could be funny, I could be too talkative, but in a game like Survivor, I kind of turn into like a chameleon where I mask everything of who I am. So I think that's like a benefit to go further, but also I think that was also a detriment and why I didn't go further in this game. But yeah, no, I was super pumped to play, and I'm not done yet. I want to keep playing, and Outlast was just the beginning.
Sounds good. Sounds good. So you arrive at the game site. Eric, I think you talked about this pretty extensively, right? You see the orange cones and you gravitated towards a specific cone based on what you saw of other people and what cones they were standing on. We obviously know that didn't come to fruition, but I'm curious for Kim, Taylor, Mike, were you thinking about the color of cone that you selected? Were you thinking that meant anything as much as maybe Eric was? Anybody?
I'll go. You go, Taylor.
Sorry. The only person that I recognized out of the entire cast coming in was Stephanie, and so I was hoping she stepped on the same cone as me, and she didn't. So that was heartbreaking, but it didn't matter. So I definitely thought that at first, though.
Yeah, I mean, I saw the 2 colored ones. I'm like, I don't think it'd be this simple. Like that'd be kind of like not fun, right? But I did think there might be an advantage somewhere or an idol, which we found out there was with Nick, but I didn't want to be that person. I think there's already like 6 or 7 people out there. So I wasn't going to go to each one and already put a target on my back. That would be very stupid in my mind. So I didn't think that had anything to do with tribes, but I definitely thought there was an advantage or an idol under it. And Nick got the right one.
Kim,
I think that I think I thought it was too simple that was just going to be the tribes moving forward, but I did think that maybe that was going to be like a first challenge type deal, and maybe we would go to votes before we were actually split up into like our actual tribes. So I was keeping an eye out. I remember feeling like I was out there pretty early, and a lot of people came out there after me, and so it was less about who I was hoping to be with that was already out there, and more just kind of like evaluating who was coming in, standing on the same color cone of like, all right, like who am I getting a good vibe from in that moment? But obviously it didn't quite play out that way.
So Eric, you do talk about on the episode that you either recognized Kim or gravitated towards Kim, so you stepped on the same color cone as her. I'd love to hear a little bit about that thought process and what was it about Kim that you were so drawn to?
Yeah, it was pretty fun watching the season back. I feel like really on a Sisyphean quest to get Kim to like me, and it just never really quite worked out. But my reasoning was, first of all, I knew that it was very possible that this was a one-sided friendship here. It was like you know someone from a podcast or a show, and they don't know you at all. Like I'd barely seen Kim, but from what I had watched of her season of Millennium Park, which I had seen, I just really like the gameplay. Like you talked in this episode or last episode about how you feel like it's hard to be a really strong female player in these games. And I was like, that's exactly the type of player I want to work with. I want to find the big threats and, team up and work together. So knowing that it was very possible that it was one-sided, I was like, I'm going to just really put my chips in this basket and hope that we're the same ideologies. And, I viewed that as my best path forward at the merge, was to team up with Kim and people like Kim. But of course, she was the only one I knew or recognized from anything else.
Nice. Awesome.
I remember feeling, sorry. I was just going to say, I remember seeing Eric too when we were standing on the cones and thinking he was the only other person that was smiling out there. And that was significant. Everybody else was kind of mean mugging, and kind of standing there in their own, solidarity. But Eric was smiling, and I did get a very good read off that. But I think just the way that it went from there. The stars didn't align, but I do remember feeling a similarly good read off of you in that first moment.
I think you said that too at some point. Maybe it was after the game, but I appreciate
We'll talk
that.
about
Thanks.
those stars eventually. I'm sure we'll get there. Mike.
Eric, I got a question for you. When the merge happened and you really wanted to work with Kim, like I was watching the season over and I was like, damn, like he seems like at the merge he's gonna come over. Yeah. How come you never came up to any of us and said,
all right,
I want to work?
Let's wait to get to the merge. We're still at the beginning of the game. We'll get there.
I'm excited. All right, I'll wait.
Too excited.
I can't wait to hear everyone's thought process at that merge vote because it was just chaotic. But we'll wait for Justin's cue. You got to go chronologically, right?
We'll talk a little more pre-merge before we get there, but we'll get there, I promise. So we break up into tribes. We always have the marooning where you grab your items, you go back to camp. Eric, one of my favorite photos is you and German carrying that box. And I think within maybe 6 inches of your hand or your arm is the first idol clue on that box. I assume you didn't notice it. Watching the episode back, like was it even on your mind that somewhere on or attached to that box could be the clue?
No, it wasn't at all, dude. I feel like it's really amazing watching this season back because I consider myself a big fan of Survivor, and like that didn't cross my mind. There being an idol underneath the cones didn't cross my mind. There being an idol in one of the Dunkin' Donuts breakfast sandwiches didn't cross my mind either. Like it should have, of course, but between me like really not thinking about these things for some reason, and also I was so scared. I don't know about you, Mike, with this being your first game, but I didn't want to go out at all. Like I was trying to downplay like some things, and one of those things was like never being the person to go off by myself. Like I was like, that seems like a terrible idea when we're all doing the kumbaya, hanging out with all 8 of us at first, or 9 of us or whatever. So for those reasons, I didn't look. Half me not being very aware, and half me like really desperately trying to fit in.
Yeah. So we get into the tribes. I think one interesting dynamic that's been discussed in a variety of ways, right, is that by design the tribes had disproportionate gender balances or gender identity balances on each tribe, right? So the Wonka tribe had 5 female identifying players and 4 male, and the Kano tribe had 5 male identifying and 4 female. So Taylor, I'm curious, do you think on the Kano side, did that enter into the game in any way, right? Did you at that beginning be like, crap, we're outnumbered, or do you think that any of those dynamics came into play in that early part of the game?
From my memory, I feel like I might have noticed it like right away, but after we got to camp and started meeting everyone more in depth, I don't think it honestly mattered at that point. So I like noticed it by just like looking, but it didn't really have an effect on any of the strategy I think that was going on early on.
Yeah, from an outside perspective, I think I've said this before, right? With Kano, a lot of the connections and relationships seem to kind of be across all types of different, identities, right? So that was interesting to me. Kim, on the Wonka side, we have 5 female identifying players, and you I think are a very compelling and interesting player because I think some people on the tribe maybe would have just leaned into that, right? But I think from the outside, it seems like you connect a lot more with the male players in the game. So I'd love to hear your perspective on, did that in the early part of the game, did that affect anything for you? Or how did that factor in at all to your gameplay?
It factored in not at all. And I say this as a truly honest statement, and I actually think it was not the smartest thing for me to not be aware of. But I don't think I even realized that we had more women than men until like several votes in. I honest to God don't think it ever once occurred to me to even pay attention to the gender dynamics or how that played out. It's just not something that factors for me at all. I'm just looking for who I'm going to connect with and like looking to meet everybody and looking to it. I honest to God didn't even realize we had a female majority there. And if I had, I still don't think it would have been something that I'd be like, oh, okay, well, that's a natural thing. Because and I think you see a lot of this in my like commentary, like the gender dynamics of this game are important to me, and also something that like I struggle with what seems to be like the norms of it. It seemed to be expected from a lot of different people, both like the players in the game and, like commentary that I'm seeing of people watching that like that. Why didn't you do that? Like that, you should have done that. You should have gone with the women. And that's just not really how my brain went. And I don't have any regrets on that, but it is interesting to see the impacts of that lack of awareness as the season moves forward.
Yeah, it's so complicated, right? And I think these games are really interesting because you go into it maybe thinking about those dynamics, maybe not. But at the same time, you have to play the cards that you are dealt. And whoever you connect with right away, regardless of any identification factors, right? You build those relationships, right? And you may gravitate towards some people for one reason or another. But at the end of the day, if the person that's hurting your tribe the most that you have to vote out is someone, whether you like them, whether they have a specific identity factor, right? Like sometimes you got to vote that person out, right? So it doesn't really, those things, it's so hard to kind of navigate. And that's what makes the game so great. But it's really interesting to see on the kind of, on the two tribes, just how it went so differently. Where kind of the dominant alliance on Wonkus was, I think, a majority of the male players, and you kind of adding on to that, right? Or being a part of that. So I just thought it was an interesting kind of way that things went, especially given the design of the tribes. Eric, was that a factor for you at all within the game? Like any sort of kind of those types of tribe dynamics? How did any of that factor into the alliances that you wanted to make?
No, this was very confusing for me, Justin. Besides wanting the whole like lions versus hyenas dynamic to go the way I wanted to, it was fun to watch it back and see a lot of people want the women to go farther, and there's a lot of talk about wanting all the gay guys and women to go farther. And this is confusing for me because I don't want anyone to go farther in the game. I wanted to get rid of people as fast as possible. I didn't really want anyone to go farther in the game at all. So this is a very foreign concept for me, and it's been educational to seeing people have convictions as they play these games. I don't understand those.
Yeah, it's a tricky path. Mike, how about for you? Did any of those type of dynamics? I mean, we obviously see here towards the end, which we'll get to, right? But a lot of the alliances that you made were more with male players. Did you go in thinking that may be the case, or was that just kind of the way that the game played out?
Absolutely not. I take pride in myself, obviously in real life, but playing a game, I don't care who you are. I don't care what you look like. I don't care where you come from. If I get along with you, I'm going to play with you. I played online games, and my number one was a gay black man. My second one was an Asian woman. The other one was whoever. I don't really remember now, but like that stuff to me doesn't affect how I want to play this game. The only way you're going to move forward in this game is in this game, you have to be able to trust people. So I don't think there's anyone that really says, I'm going to go in and only play with XYZ, because it's not going to be beneficial to your game. On day one, I noticed Kim, who was on the field, and I was drawn to her, and I was like, that looks like somebody I want to play with. Once I was on the tribe with her, we engaged day one, and then I became allies with David. That's a woman and a gay man right there, and I'm a straight white guy. I don't care who you are. If I have a good vibe with you, I'm going to play with you. So it hurts me a little bit. You know, you don't want a certain sex to get depleted, right? Or like that. But I feel like sometimes in the game, it just works out that way. Like Stephanie didn't do anything around camp. I actually probably vibed with Stephanie.
We love you, Stephanie, though. We love you, Stephanie.
Like, no offense, Steph. Like, and I think I've told people this. I probably got along with you the best, but I already made kind of an alliance with Kim and David, and then John joined that, and the majority just was there. And you didn't do much around camp. And then Jazzy was a little bit chaotic, and people didn't trust her. So, yes, that's two ladies that went home, and Lizzie was kind of on that. But, like, I truly don't think people play that way. And I would hate for people to play that way. But in this game, you just go off vibes. And I respect everyone's opinion. And maybe I'm wrong, but, like, personally, the way I play, I don't care who you are. And I'm going to go far with anybody that seems to gonna make me go further in this game.
Right. And I think most people go into these games that way, right? You're going to play with the people you connect with, and those connections come in all shapes, forms, and sizes. You got to play the cards that you are dealt, and sometimes the game hands you a really weird deck that you weren't really expecting it to, right? So I don't want to beat that dead horse, but I know it's been talked a lot about kind of, optics-wise on the outside of Outlast, right? Like there were a lot of ladies that went early, right? And as a producer, I don't certainly want to impact the game if that's the way the game is supposed to unfold based on the players and the characters in the game and the dynamics. Then that's the way the game should go. But I wanted to kind of address the elephant in the room, right? Because it is being talked about commentary-wise, and just as you look at the outline of the game. I'm kind of curious. So bring us to our first. We go through the reward day. So the first few challenges are rewards, and that is by design, right? To give you an opportunity to connect with your tribe, to see who's good at what, to kind of build some time so you're not just walking onto the field and voting someone out right away, right? So it gives you a little bit of that time. Eric, you were very pointed in your commentary about how you were disappointed with the makeup of your tribe. So I'd love for you to comment on that and what was so bothersome about kind of your tribe versus the other tribe.
Justin, were you watching the first few challenges?
I was. I feel like you were right in all of them. I don't feel like you were like getting blown
out. I mean, the truth is, I just saw an opportunity to make a joke, and then made me laugh. Like, was it like that bad? Probably not. But we got slaughtered, dude. I thought it wasn't even close the first few challenges, and I thought that even like looks wise, they just looked a lot stronger than us in a lot of ways, a lot of physical ways. Obviously, you can't really judge a lot of like the other dynamics, like teamwork and puzzle strength and all that, but I was just trying to be funny, and as it turned out, I was dead wrong and looked like an idiot because we proceeded to like not lose another challenge shortly after I said that. So I think I got my comeuppance for that.
It was a great way to edit for sure. But, just to be clear, the water bucket tossing challenge, you were only behind by 1 bucket and you missed your toss. So that's why your tribe lost. I'm just kidding. Second challenge, I think you guys were actually ahead in the block puzzle. You actually got all the blocks back first. So I feel like you were right in them. I take it personally, obviously, because I have to make up these tribes without any real idea of who people are and what their strengths are. So just know I took a lot of care in trying to make sure that the tribes were as balanced as possible. And I am sorry if you felt slighted and that affected your game.
You did fantastically. I am an idiot. You're great.
No. I love that commentary. I think that some of those honest assessments or how you're feeling in the middle of the game, it's really important. So I loved hearing those thoughts around the tribe dynamics. So Taylor, when you're kind of going through that reward day, how much, we obviously see you over the course of the challenges become kind of a standout in some of the challenges. So how much were you in the reward challenges thinking about holding back, or are you trying to prove to your tribe your worth? Like, what's your approach from a challenge perspective?
I've always been a super competitive person, and like I played sports and stuff growing up. So I feel like it would be difficult for me, but also probably a little bit smart to hold back in challenges. But it's like I just have like an urge to not want to lose no matter what. I don't care if it's a reward and we're going to be safe anyways. I just like don't want to not try my hardest. So I don't know. I feel like I just have to give it my all in a challenge. Maybe it would be interesting to try to not, because I feel like that would just look awkward of you not trying your hardest. But definitely something to think about.
Taylor, you were a rock star.
Taylor was an absolute like beast. She was so impressive. We were all so scared of her at the merge because she's athletic. Like, she was stealthy, and I just want to give Taylor the credit she deserves, because it's always tough to, you don't see everything in the edit, but like Taylor was an incredible athlete and probably, if not the best athlete on this cast.
I love watching her kick your butt and tossing bags for sure, Mike. That was one of my favorite moments.
She kicked my ass too. There's no denying that.
It was ridiculous. Tug of war, tossing bags, balancing, you name it.
Yeah, we'll obviously get to it, but I love that. I mean, the tug of war challenge, I think we, even as a production team, and I think to your credit, Eric, about what we just talked about, right? Visually, I was thinking Wonkus would just destroy the tug of war, right? Just like looking, if you look kind of, like apples to apples, I think we were shocked at just how, and I think maybe Wonkus was too a little bit, just like how great Kano was in the tug of war. And I think, like Eli comes out of nowhere. Taylor, you I think we see just some really great performances from Kano in that. But we're already jumping ahead. Anything else from reward day that stood out, or the reward challenges? We have those 4 reward challenges. I think we've talked a little bit already about the barter cam. I don't know how much that actually factored into the game at large. You and David kind of bartering with German and Allison during that last reward challenge. Do you feel like that really ever came into play? Because you do end up with German at the swap. I don't know if that ever came up again or it really became a factor.
I don't feel like it became much of a factor. I did feel like it made me want to draw to German more a little bit when we hit the merge, because I had felt like I had tried to establish a bit of a foundation there. But honestly, I mean, it's a quick game, but it was such like ancient history at the time that we merged. So much had happened between that I don't know that it made a significant difference moving forward. I do know that I like ran to my tribe to tell them what we had done, because I was trying really hard to make sure that like we were being very above board about it. I didn't want to be in a situation where they were thinking that we were scheming with the other tribe already or whatever. And so that was sort of a first opportunity for me to try to like be aggressively honest with everyone about what was happening.
And Eric, do you need any explanation on why the bartering happened and how it benefited the tribes? Because in your confession, there's like, I don't know why they would do that. I don't know why they would give it to us. Do you have any questions you want to ask about the bartering?
Yes. To this day, I do not understand anything about what happened in that moment. It makes no sense to me. But I think in the interest of time, we should probably just move on. And I'm willing to accept that I'll never understand this.
Kim,
as far as I can tell, they were like, oh, we could win, but we'll let you win instead in exchange for us losing. That's my understanding right now. So if anyone wants to tell me after this roundtable, that'd be great. But I'm okay with not knowing, I guess.
Well, Kim, I'm curious, was David really struggling, and that was the prompting for it? Because from the video, it didn't seem like he was struggling that much, and it actually seemed maybe like German was struggling a little bit more than David was at that point. So was there more to the barter? We don't have to harp on it too much, but I am curious if there was more to it than what we saw.
Definitely. He was beginning to struggle, but German was absolutely struggling more. And I think David could have outlasted him up there. But we were so confused about what was happening with the bag tossing on our tribe, and we couldn't get a read on like what was going on. It almost seemed like somebody was intentionally like trying to lose it. And so that was a whole thing. And God bless you guys. I couldn't have done better. I intentionally said I'm dropsy. I couldn't do it, but it did almost seem like somebody was intentionally trying to throw it. I think that came into play. But also it was just sort of like building better vibes. We knew it. Details for me are hazy now, but like it was a whole thing about the tarps, and are we going to leave them with no tarps? And it was, we had already won so much that it kind of felt like an opportunity to build a bridge and show a little bit of like compassion and empathy, while still knowing that we were walking away with everything we need. Oh, and it's something about the kindling too, that we were going to grab kindling out of it. Maybe stupid in the end, but it was with the intention of building bridges and, you know, making good connections.
So compassion and compassion and empathy, Eric. It makes total sense why it wouldn't make any sense to you then, if those are the two big factors, right?
It's all coming together. Yeah.
Burn.
You know what it also did? You made Allison feel like a master manipulator. So that was a little bonus. That was fun to watch her explain that after.
I just want to go around quick round table of the 4 reward challenges. So you have the water balloon toss, the puzzle, the 4-block puzzle, the idols, knocking the idols off the perch, and the hero challenge. What was your favorite, Taylor? Which one did you like the most?
I liked the idol knockoff, because I've done it the game before. It was like single, like 1 versus 1. So I thought it was interesting to have like so much chaos going on all at once.
All right. How about you, Mike?
I'd probably say the idol one too. That was like the first like active, you know, like one-on-one, like really sizing up people, seeing what they're about. And then also the block, because that was kind of like the first Sandra and Jazzy rivalry that we saw. And it was cool to just see, okay, there's some cracks in this tribe. And if we go to travel, it's going to be a little messy.
How about you, Eric?
Honestly, the idol one, because I got to experience probably my biggest athletic moment of success since age 12 when I was playing tennis tournaments, when I caught the bottle sideways. So that's really helped me get through a lot of tough moments in the 9 months since we played. So that one. Also watching Taylor destroy Mike in that one challenge.
I haven't slept in 7 months, by the way. So.
Well, just so you know, for future seasons, I have to only use 5 of those since one of them's broken. But that's all right. We'll make do. We'll make do.
Was that you?
Kim, how about for you? Do you have a favorite moment or a favorite reward challenge?
I really liked the water balloons. I thought that was fun. The water balloons in the buckets, right? Was that, or am I jumping ahead? That was one of the reward ones, right? I don't know. I like ones where like everyone's waiting in suspense for a certain thing, and it's like time takes forever while the water balloon's in the air. I just like that whole moment of excitement. So I enjoyed that.
Nice. All right, we get to the first immunity challenge. Kano, to everyone's surprise, just blows it out of the water. We blame it on David on the balance beam, or Sandra on the the grappling hook. Who knows where the real trouble was? But so we're going to our first tribal council, right? You got the night to think about it. Eric, I want to hear from you because we don't capture much of it on film, but what was the discussion like in Kano? We learned about the twist where you can save somebody on Wonkus. What was the discussion like that night around Kano in terms of who to save? Was it pretty clear cut, or was there a lot of discussion?
Justin, this is one of my unsung moments where I feel like I don't get enough credit that I deserve, because I desperately wanted to do anything interesting, anything at all. But I held it all together because the tribe simply was like, just give it to the girl who threw up and was like sitting out of the challenge. And it seemed very boring. It seemed like she was not going to get any votes, but this was me still pretending that I had a chance of flying under the radar for like 2 votes. So I just did that. And that's really all there was to it. So there wasn't anything more than that, as far as I know. Taylor, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. I don't remember too much strategy going on that night about like anything, let alone the necklace. It seemed like pretty quiet night at Kano.
Yeah. It is very, watching the episodes back, there's a lot to talk about in the tribal council. Obviously, we can dig into it here and there. But, Eric, if you do end up putting that necklace on Stephanie's neck, Kim goes home in that round and the whole game changes, right? Like, so did it ever cross your mind to change what the tribe wanted at tribal council after hearing what everyone was saying?
No, that just seemed like it was a needless way to attract more attention. And so I felt like I was given an easy out to just, put it on the obvious person's neck. So, and beyond that, like, how could I put it on anyone else's neck? Like, I didn't have any information really. Everyone's being all coy and cagey in tribal council. So there's nothing else I would have even thought to do besides just like something crazy for the hell of it.
Yeah.
So,
I was going to ask that as well. Did you bring any information back to Kano? Do you remember if there was anything interesting that you told them?
I didn't bring any information back to Kano because there was no information to bring back to Kano. I told them everything that happened at that tribal, which as far as I could tell was nothing. So there's really nothing to that story. It didn't help us in our immunity challenge wins thereafter. Something else must have changed it. It wasn't anything I brought back.
Got it. So Kim, I'm curious, did you have any, I think I know the answer. How much of an indication did you have of what kind of the real dynamics were at tribal council that, a lot of us, I don't think we're privy to? Did you have a suspicion at all that something else was going on?
I had no idea that they were coming for me. I really, really didn't. I was confused about what was going on between what Jazzy was trying to orchestrate here, which was that we kind of all had agreed on Steph, but now we're going to split the votes and do this whole, 3-2-1 type deal. And all of that felt confusing for me. And I did feel like there was something happening that I didn't quite understand. But I was not walking in feeling like I was at risk at all. I think I raised my hand. You asked if anybody feels confident, and I raised my hand. I felt pretty confident. Shouldn't have, but there you go.
So, Mike, I'm curious if did other folks? We see a lot of the aftermath, right, of you all talking about it. I don't feel like a lot of people knew, but was there any hint from your perspective on kind of other kind of things other than Steph happening at that tribal council?
No, and that was the moment where it's like, game on. People are playing this, and it might be first couple hours in, but this game is going to be a bloodbath. And the way the game kind of started on Wonkus was me, Kim, and David got a relationship in the woods and formed a 3. We really liked John. That was 4. And Carlos kind of came around. But the way it really formed fully was Jazzy grabbed Stephanie and Lizzie and went to the bathroom. And I think Carlos goes, hey, guys, we have this amount of people right now. Let's stick to it. And that was fine with me because I had Kim, David, and I wanted John in that fold. The biggest key was Sandra. I thought Sandra was good with us. I think at that time she was probably the closest to me and John. So we were telling her to vote. Like, it's going to be Steph. She's not doing much around camp. Like, let's just have an easy vote. I remember that was on camera, me, David, and Kim talking about that with Steph. But she didn't, or with Sandra, but Sandra had her own agenda. She didn't trust Kim at the time. And I think she was ready to make a move. And that's because Jazzy planted the seed in her head that Kim wanted her out, which wasn't true. So Jazzy was out for blood from day one. She wanted to control the vote to get Kim out. So props to her. She played a hell of a game at that time, because I had no idea that many votes would be on Kim. The only thing that I knew was that Steph was most likely going home. And if Jazzy and Lizzie threw a vote, it probably wasn't going to be me. But I didn't know it was going to be split. And the game was on from there.
And I think things got really emotional after that point. Like, I burst into tears after the tie vote came out. Like, when you finally read that last vote for Steph, things were peaking early at this point. This is like early in the morning on the second day. And I was not expecting things to feel that dire or intense that early. It was,
I wanted to put my arm around you so bad. Like, I was sitting right next to you, but I didn't want people to like know we were working together. But
right.
To have that many votes on you, the first vote when you expected maybe one or two max, it was crazy. It really was. And you were close to go home. It's insane.
Yeah, it was really interesting watching the footage, putting that together and realizing that if Carlos and John don't change their mind and don't kind of adjust their votes, Kim goes there, right? If the actual split goes through, Kim is the first person out of it last, which playing with Kim before, I would have been, obviously devastated as a friend, but also just like shocked. Like, that never would have crossed my mind at all. Anything else about that kind of tribal that Mike or Kim, you want to get off your chest? Anything else that's interesting? No.
I think that was just like the start of Carlos being in everything. Like, I'm pretty impressed in Carlos's game. He calls himself messy, but like, I think he does pretty well, and he had to adjust and tell John to change his vote so Kim didn't go home, and he's been on both sides. So like, that was the kind of like story arc of Carlos, of like being in on a different sides. And just the Jazzy of always stirring the pot up. Like, you never know what you're going to get with Jazzy. And it could have been an easy vote. She could have voted Steph. She said, screw that. Let me get my way. So like, I give Jazzy a lot of credit for playing the game hard. Yeah.
Eric, I'll come to you. I think so. After that tribal, there's a kind of a messy argument that happens on the mat right in front of Cano. And I think we hear you commenting a little bit. Did that, I'm curious, as the other tribe, did you guys talk about that? Did you talk about kind of what that means for the game?
Yeah, Taylor and I were eating popcorn on our mat watching this whole happen, and it was like straight out of a sitcom. Like, they all like hushed up after about, 12 minutes of arguing, and looked over at us, and we were like, hey guys, we're here. We've been here the whole time. It's like, wow, this is real, man. You guys must have gotten up to something crazy back there. I had no idea what was going on, but they were not shy about talking about it. And I'm sure that most of you did not want to, but all it takes is one person to start it, and then you don't really have a choice, I will say. So what do you remember, Taylor?
Yeah, I think it was crazy because, like I said before, I feel like at Cano at night, there was not much like strategy going on. And then in the morning, there's like this whole thing. And it's just crazy to see, like, especially watching the episode back to see what actually happened the first round. I feel like it was like so different. It was so much fun to watch because we had like no idea that all of that was happening. So just seeing like a little bit of them like bickering back and forth, and then now watching back and see what happened, it was very, very fun to watch.
Which is, I think, a very different scenario than the first Cano Tribal Council. Before we get to that, because I do think I have a couple things I want to ask, but Taylor, I think on a previous roundtable, someone may have mentioned your name in terms of dictating the strategy of the next community challenge where you're stacking the blocks, and that could have been the reason that Cano lost. So I want you to be able to defend yourself. Did you put together the strategy for that, and what went wrong for Cano?
Okay, so that was like an actual strategy. So like I said, the game I just had played before, my team lost so bad. It was quite the opposite. Well, actually, no, it was the same. We lost really bad. But the strategy that I was saying was what the other team had done in my last game to perfect it. And then I had actually played like a mini murder mystery type game with the same group of friends that I met at Survivor. And I was on the tribe that won by doing that strategy. So it works,
Okay.
but not for us.
So tried and true, tested, just didn't happen to happen that time. Eric,
Maybe we weren't that good after all, Justin. Maybe the problem wasn't the strategy. Ever think of that?
Yeah, Eric's right. It was just our tribe, I guess.
have been. So Eric, I'm curious about the second that vote, right, where we see Lori go home. I feel like both you and Taylor at certain moments talk about, and Alice and a bunch of people, you didn't want Lori to be the first person to go, but like we couldn't get it together. Like it seemed like a bunch of people didn't want that to be the first vote for you. What happened there? What couldn't come together for you?
Yeah, this was one of those moments. I feel like this is a classic Survivor decision that people have to make is, do you try to get your way early in the game, or do you just go with the flow and say, I don't even know these people, like who cares? It's not even like I have a number one yet at this point. And the decision I made, and what I feel like is usually the right decision, is to not fight for anything too hard. And with my memory, and you'll have to ask them when they eventually do this too, is that Nick and Nicole were really pushing for Lori to go home, like super hard. And there were other people like me and like Taylor, I think, who would rather have seen someone else go home. I didn't really care who. I didn't want it to be Lori. She would have not been like the top 3 people I wanted to go home at that point. But I just sat back and let it happen. And, I think you're damned if you do and damned if you don't sometime. I do think her being in the game would have been better for me, but I was of a mindset where I didn't want to rock the boat at that point. So
let's be a little saucy. Who are those 3? Who would have been your top 3 at that moment to go?
Oh, easy. Daniel, Eli, and Allison, simply because they were the other 3 that I didn't feel like I'd talked to at all, had any connection with, and we did have that group of 5 being everybody else besides Lori. So any of those 3, I would have rather had gone home than Lori. Sorry guys, but I didn't know who the hell you were.
I think
Taylor,
it was like partly because Lori was super nice, but I feel like once she got wind that somebody had said her name, it kind of felt like she had accepted defeat already. Like, from my memory, I feel like everyone was going around in their little groups of 2s and 3s, and she seemed to be like staying to herself, like she wasn't really trying to fight for it. So although I think a lot of us, I know Daniel was the other option that was going around, it was like he was more willing to play, and if she was like ready to accept defeat that early, it was like Eric said, it's not worth putting your neck out on the line for somebody that didn't really want to fight for themselves. But she was super nice, so it felt very sad to do.
Yeah, I would add that she did seem really quiet. I don't know what she said in her roundtable, but that was my perspective as well.
Yeah. Great. We get to the third vote. This is where we unfortunately see Lizzie go. Kim, I'll come to you because I think you were assuring Lizzie it wouldn't be her. You were like, it's not going to be you. It's going to be Jazzy. So I'm curious, how confident were you? Like, did the fact that if Jazzy voted for Lizzie would go, did that enter all of your minds of like, if Jazzy votes the right way, this could get screwed up?
For me, absolutely not. I was 1000% confident. I knew exactly what was happening and exactly how that was going to play out. And again, that is me like trying to get ahead of looking like I'm lying. Like, I think Lizzie's staying. So I want to go ahead of it and be like, hey, there's going to be votes on your head. I'm telling you ahead of time so that I'm not breaking your trust, but like, you're fine. Yeah, well, we messed up in the end. We really thought we had figured out how we were doing this, and we did not have that in the bag.
All right. We get to the swap. I'm going to kind of cruise a little bit ahead so I don't want to keep you up too late, and I want to make sure we get to, your episodes. So we cruise to the swap. Swap happens. Kim, you're in a minority. Quick recap on kind of how you were feeling in the swap tribe.
I was scared. I mean, I felt like if we lost anything, I thought for sure I was going to be the first one to go. I think Carlos always came across like a more neutral player than I did. And so that he seemed to me like somebody that they would be more willing to keep. And I also didn't know how much anyone else knew or was going to find out about the votes on my head. So that felt very scary. And I remember like wanting to go over to all my new tribe mates and be like really friendly, and watching the episode and being like, oh my God, I'm so intense. Like I go and I shake everyone's hand. I remember it being like, hey, I'm Kim. And like watching it, I'm like, hey, it's really nice to meet you. Hi, what's up? Like I can't, it's so in my blood. Like I'm so just hardcore about it all. So that's funny to see, but I think I knew I was in dangerous waters.
And Eric, here's your opportunity. You get to work with Kim. This is your golden opportunity. Here she comes. What was your plan? You know, if you were to lose, I know you say in the episode you don't think you could save her. Like, was that genuine? Like, you really didn't think you could save her if you did lose?
Justin, how dare you? Every goddamn thing I say in my confessionals is genuine. I will never lie to the camera. That's my one true alliance in every game I play. And my thoughts were that, first of all, when Kim and I were tied together for that running blindfolded challenge, do you remember what I said to you at some point, Kim?
Yeah, we were like running back, hands held, blindfolded, and you were like, "Hey, just so you know, I'd really like to work with you." As we're like hopping back, I was like, "Yeah, that's great, awesome."
I meant to say that earlier, but I forgot. But then I was like, I was very worried if I pulled Kim aside that it would look very sketchy. So I think, unless I'm forgetting, I told you to pull me aside at some point, and I think I did a really bad job of actually communicating. I found it very hard to break away from the group. And I was very worried that if I did that as part of the majority, it would look very, very sketchy. And I don't think I ever really got the chance to talk with Kim as much as I would have liked to. There's one time when Daniel freaking followed us to get water, and I was like, God, Daniel, get out of here, man. I'm trying to do something here. And he probably doesn't even know unless that was intentional. So with that said, yeah, I think the vibe of everyone in that tribe, including Taylor, I know, was let's get Kim out. No one wanted you in the game. And I think I could have done a better job of communicating that was everyone's thought process, and try to, work with both you and the people that I cared about on my original tribe. So
I intentionally did follow you. Sorry.
No,
I
go
know
for it.
you were saying how you felt like you couldn't get away. I remember intentionally actually following. Every time I saw you going away with Kim, I was like, oh no, I have to go with you, because
God damn it, Taylor.
only because that night, like before the swap and everything, me and Eric was the only person I said any strategy to, and it was like very brief, but I was like, this feels strange that no one's like talking strategy yet. So me and Eric like had a thing from the night before. And then I remember Kim had came up to me during that swap, and she was like, thanks for not throwing the challenge. You could have got me out. And I was like, you're right. Because everyone knew she was a threat. But like I said, I can't like see myself losing on purpose, because anything can happen. But I was actually nervous like around that swap, just because I was like, I can't let her or Carlos like get away secretly and do something behind my back in case we did lose.
Oh my God, Taylor.
Yeah, I was going to ask if Taylor, if or you or Eric, if you ever talked about throwing. Like Daniel mentioned his roundtable and his confessional, right? Like it didn't really cross your minds, right? Like I don't know that you talked about it much as a tribe or like a former Cano group about throwing to get rid of Kim or Carlos. Was that? Do you remember any of those conversations happening?
No, we didn't talk about it at all. It obviously crossed my mind. How could it not, right? Like it's something you want to think about, but I didn't seriously consider throwing them because the reasons Taylor said. I mean, you never know what could happen. I mean, one of us would have gotten idled out for sure. In this case, I'm assuming you had the idol at that point. I don't remember the episode when you found it. So that obviously could happen, and then you never know. And beyond that, I don't know. Winning challenges is fun, man. What do you want from me? I want to go out there and play. Did you consider it, Taylor?
Oh.
No, like I said, I didn't even like think about. I was a very new Survivor fan, so I wasn't like expecting that to be a thing. And like I said, once Kim was the only one who had mentioned it to me after the fact, and I was like, oh, we really could have. But since I didn't know she had the idol, because I think at that point she was saying like how John might have it. So yeah, I wouldn't have even been expecting that if we did go to tribal.
It's a great segue because Kim, we don't capture on film, so I'd love for you to kind of finally explain where you found the idol, how you got to it. Tell us the story.
Yeah. So Jazzy had found the clue, and she had told someone, and it had gotten to me through like the game of telephone. So I knew it was like 42 paces from the center and a stump. Like there were things, but it was kind of cloudy. And I found that out before she shared it with me, which she did eventually do. Being completely honest, after she came for me, I was like, never ever gonna be good with her again in terms of the game. Respect her, like awesome person, but I was like that, you know, from then on, like the ties were broken game wise. But I knew I needed to like kind of try to like play defense. And so we had several side conversations between the two of us where we were like, no one's going to expect us to work together. This is really like, this could be really cool. Like, let's keep acting like we don't have good blood, but like, we'll keep checking in. That was never a serious possibility on my point, but it did feel valuable. And she did actually wind up fully reading the clue out to me, word for word. And then it was just a measure, like, I think very opposite. Kano got that whole night of like kumbaya, no vote the next morning. Like we were strategizing, like there was that fear. And that next morning, a bunch of us were out there looking. And I just kept looking. And I remember Jazzy several times being like, it's got to be gone. Like, I know it's not there. And it really was just a matter of, I just kind of went out, like, I don't know, 7th, 8th, 9th time. Kept walking around to different stumps and I saw it and I was just like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I had this, I'm trying to think. It must have been after tug of war because that's when I messed my back up and I had the ice pack in my back and I hid it between the ice pack and like my shorts and came back and gave David like a wide-eyed kind of like, oh my God, and he got it right away. And that was that from there.
I don't know if you, Eric and Taylor, if you've watched the other roundtables, but I did confirm there was an idol at Kano. It was there, just no one ever found it, I don't think. If you kind of walk into camp, there's kind of like some trees and brush towards the back of your camp, and it was kind of on the other side of those in a stump similarly. And it sounds like everyone kept looking for idols the other way. Not a lot of people went towards the back of your camp, I guess. But there were idols at both camps. From the start of the game. So I was excited at least one got found. I will say I do think Kano was a little harder to navigate around. There was just a little bit more brush and trees and stuff around where I think Wonka's had a little bit more open space. There were a lot of options for hiding stuff over there.
Let's not downplay my success. I mean, it was an incredible find and I did
it was an incredible find. It was an incredible
find. Easiest idol find ever. Not even impressive. Justin, at any point, did you consider putting idols in bird cages?
No. That's one twist I will not be stealing, probably.
What about just handing it out?
I actually remember. Sorry. I actually remember at one point I was looking back in the brush, like you said, where it was. And I remember our tribe handler got up off her chair that she brought and started following me intensely with the phone. And I was like, oh no, this is it. I'm about to find it. But there was like no clear like landmarks kind of back there that I noticed, but I do remember that I was looking for firewood like everyone else was, and I was back there and everyone was on the other side, but then I was like, what? She's following me for a reason, like it must be here. But I didn't have any clue to where it was. I had no idea, but I actually remember looking back there and I was nervous that it was going to be like the edit where it's like ding right in front of my face.
I did not see any of that footage, unfortunately, but so Mike, I want to come to you after the swap, right? We've got the Allison vote that happens. We've got Eli that pulls out for being sick. We've got the Jazzy vote. So I'd love for you to summarize. We could, if there's any important things, obviously mention them, but I'd love you to summarize that part of the game for you and kind of what that, because, Kano was just winning, right? So a lot of the strategy and the gameplay that was happening over at the Wonkus camp during that stretch of the game. So I'd love to hear kind of a recap from you on that section of the game and kind of what it was like for you.
I think a tribe swap is extremely lucky, and I was extremely lucky in that point of the game. I had David, I had John, and we were both protecting as hard as possible Kim and Carlos, because me and David valued Kim so much, and John really valued Carlos. And we knew if we could pick off Kano, it's only going to benefit us going forward. So as much as you never want to lose, right? Like you're not trying to lose a challenge. It actually benefited us because it kept Kim and Carlos in the game and we got rid of Kano. But as it goes by, you realize Jazzy was on the outs with the original tribe from the start, ever since she was messy as hell day one. And I'm shocked shocked she never pulled anyone from Kano, Allison, Eli, Nick, and goes, who do you want to get out right now? Because she was on the bottom of that alliance and she didn't want to be messy, but she had an opportunity to literally like get her way. So I always find that fascinating where you don't want to piss off everybody and play like completely sloppy, but like she had a chance to get out a guy like John that she didn't like. And she could have flipped the game and got on Kano's good side because we were already tribe swapping. You don't know what's next in the game. So you need friends and you need friends now if you don't have them. So I had friends. So I was like, you know, I'm good with David. I'm good with John. I'm trying to think who else was on that tribe. Jazzy. We had one more Kano. Who was it?
Nick, Eli, and Allison were the three.
So how did we have majority? Oh, me, John, Jazzy, David, original Wonkus. But like,
and then
I still can't believe Jazzy voted with us. But
yeah, especially where she knew that you all were doing Allison, right? Perfect opportunity for her to grab the other three and convince Eli to stick around one more vote. So, you know, you're not going to go home because they're going to vote for Allison. So just stick around one more vote for me. I'm going to get one of them out. Then if you want to go, then you can go, right? But yeah, it's interesting. I hope that we get a chance to kind of recap with her because she wasn't able to make the round table before. But I'm very curious about the.
And just lastly, like I knew Jazzy was the ultimate threat when Eli was sick. I'm like, he's not sick. I don't care what anyone says. He's not sick. John's like, oh, he might be. David and Jazzy were so confident they were lying. I was like, Eli is sick. We're not going to do this, are we? But like Jazzy and David's mind were so locked in of like, what if? So yeah, I felt so bad Allison went. Like that was, I texted her after the game, like, I'm sorry. Like I felt so bad. But like Jazzy's head was in the game so much and I couldn't trust her after that. Because even if you did vote with us, if you're thinking that far ahead of like what ifs when this dude was sick, what else are you capable of? And after that, I just like could never trust her again. And what she did to Kim like day one.
Right. All right. Anything else that we want to recap? Anything that we've missed from your games pre-merge? There's a lot to talk about the merge. Hopefully we can do it in 20-ish minutes or so. But anything else? Pre-merge. We'll do a quick round the horn. What was your favorite pre-merge challenge? Favorite tribal challenge of those first group? We'll go to Taylor first. I think I know. It's when you kicked Mike's ass in the tossing, right?
Kind of, but like also tug of war. But I like the one with Mike's because I like the challenges where it's like different stations for different people have different roles. So probably that one.
All right. How about you, Mike?
I mean, it's weird because we lost it, but like tug of war, like that's Survivor, that's old school, like hands dirty, like let's see what you got. And the fact that Kano beat us, like we're strong tribe, like we have some strong dudes, some strong women, and we got our ass kicked. So like we lost, but that challenge was just like old school Survivor, and I really like that.
How about you, Kim?
Definitely the holding the box up, the endurance challenge. Got to work with David, and we did a great job with it. It was really fun.
Eric, how about you?
I actually really enjoyed the box one too. It was so fun. I love endurance challenges, and it was really fun to actually participate in them. And I also just remember really cracking myself up with everything I said. I don't think the audio really caught it, unfortunately. I'm sure that's why it didn't make the edit. That's the only reason I can think of. But
yeah.
I remember it being very funny and rewarding to know that like you can push yourself a lot farther than you might think. And unfortunately for me, Daniel blew it for us. So I can hang my head high, you know.
Oh gosh. I mean, one of my favorite moments is you hanging on by your socks and then getting mad at me when I called it out. That was one of my favorites.
That was for the joke. You know, I know, of course, you can say anything you want, and you should absolutely do that, Justin. By the way, just so you know, in case you were losing sleep over that. Okay.
No, I'm not. All right. So we get to the merge. We have this double kind of, we have earned the merge, double tribal. Daniel and Sandra go. I don't think there's much surprise there, but I do want to acknowledge the legacy, which we hear throughout the rest of the merge and into tonight's episode. So I don't want to jump too far ahead. But Mike, I'd love for you to kind of recap a little bit about that relationship with Sandra, because we don't see a lot of it on camera. And maybe that was intentional, maybe it wasn't. But I was shocked that she ends up handing you the legacy when she goes, because I think she tells everyone John and Carlos, right? She kind of puts that out in the ether, but ends up handing it to you. So do you have much? She talks about it a little bit in her roundtable, but from your perspective, was that a surprise to you that you got it? And what was that relationship like? Was that a strategic relationship you were building?
Absolutely. That was 100% strategic. And that was one of the happiest moments of my game, because I really thought I deserved to get that, because I knew I had Kim and David. And at that point in the game, John and Carlos really liked me and trusted me. And I said, I have to get close to Sandra in case there's a swap, in case there's anything. I need her to trust me, because if I have those two on both sides and I have Sandra, I have some serious numbers. So I was really nice to her, just trying to get to know her genuinely. Like, I got along with Sandra very well. But game-wise, I really put a lot of effort in, being like, I need her to be like, Mike is a good guy and somebody I want to work with. And when she was left out of one of the votes because she got tricked by John, which is still so funny. Like, we were voting Jazzy 100%, and she just, like, didn't know. I, like, put my arm around her, and I was like, I'm really upset you weren't in that vote. Like, I want to play this game with you, and, like, I don't want you to feel like you're not in the outs. And I really put in a lot of work, and it felt good to have that rewarded. And I knew it was going to come down to me and John, because she would laugh at everything John said. And I was like, all right, I need to be better than John. And I really worked hard to get it, and it paid off. And yeah, I don't want to talk about the legacy advantage, but at the time I was very excited. Yeah.
Nice. All right, so we merge. It is 5-5, which it's, you know, I'll talk about this probably at the end as well. It's just so interesting how the game played out, where we end up with a dead even kind of original tribe breakdown right at the merge. Like, it's every producer's dream, right? Because it's one of those things where if you have an obvious majority, you likely know where the game is going. Now, a lot of games do blow up and mix up and all of that, but I was excited to see a 5-5 split. I was excited to see that we had people on both sides that had received votes. So I knew past votes would probably come into play a bit, which I know is Eric's favorite rule. So I'm a little curious for the immunity challenge. Eric, going into that immunity challenge, were you like really trying hard to win? Did you know that like your past votes could be an issue, and that was like was that a have to win moment for you? Because I think Taylor, you also had votes, right? So the two of you were kind of like the vote people. So one of you had to win, right? So Eric, what was going into that challenge? What was your mindset?
I didn't view it as like a literal 100% must win at that point. We hadn't really talked with anyone from the other tribe. Obviously, it ended up being that way. But I can honestly say that there's no goddamn chance in hell that I was winning that challenge. You can't tell from the edit, because it just looks like we're freaking standing there. The camera's like a million miles away, Justin. So it turns out what was actually happening was all of us were frantically shaking, like we were like having a severe panic attack on those bricks, because from the second you step on those stupid things, your legs are like jelly and they're wobbling nonstop. And I don't have good balance. So unless I have a racket in my hand. So I knew that there was no shot it was happening. Almost fell off like so close so many times that I was like, I think it's better for me to not try as hard as I could. Like, what's the difference between third place and fifth place or whatever? And I'm totally at peace with my decision to step down for a stupid bag of chips. That bag of chips was worth more to me than getting third place, because there's no way I'm lasting anywhere close to Taylor and Kim up here. So that was very impressive watching back. And I'd like to know how you did that.
So Kim, I was going to come to you next. You can obviously answer Eric's question of how you did it, but also, you know, do you have any regrets for taking the food and stepping down?
I more regret not opening a conversation with Taylor in that moment of just like, hey, where are you? Like, how are you feeling? I stepped down and was hoping I could leverage that decision with her, which I tried to do in conversations, but I think it would have been more powerful had I opened the conversation before I stepped down. I was so close to falling off. I mean, I think I was like the first one to falter when you're watching it, like from the first moments on. Like, I was really not in a good spot. Like, I thought I was going to faint. And I do think that's like playing a game on this kind of a time frame. This was like what, the 8th challenge of the day, and we haven't eaten, and we thought we were getting a feast. And now, and again, I'm with you, Eric. It looks like we're just standing in a field. It was unbelievably hard. And just all of it, like, I was falling to pieces. And so in my mind, I'm like, I'm not walking away empty-handed, and I don't have the confidence I can make it to the next one. And I have no idea where Taylor is, but I needed something. I needed a win. And to me in that moment, it was the pizza that I would later throw up. But it felt good, and I was excited at least to bring something back that I could share. But yeah, I think I could have been more strategic. I just honestly wasn't even in my right mind at that point. You're so out of it and just done.
Taylor, what was that challenge like for you? Kind of getting through it, but then winning the first individual immunity challenge, does that put a target on you? Like, was that a concern for you at all?
Yeah, like they said, it was like so much harder than it looked, because I feel like you gave us an opportunity. You were like, you can adjust them before you stand on it. And I think no matter what, like, they were just so bumpy that it was like constantly wobbling. And
Our
I feel
challenge
like
designs, they're amazing.
it was super hard. And I remember at that point, I knew Kim's back was hurting her. And I feel like I might have been able to see out of the corner of my eye how she kept on like going down to rest her hands on her knees and stuff. And I was in pain, but I was scared. And I was like, I'm not going this far for nothing. So I like remember specifically staring at like a blade of grass, the same exact one, the whole time. Like I would not move my eyes from that because that's the only way that I could balance. And then as soon as you came over with the camera and got in way of that piece of grass, that's when I started like feeling scared. So even if Kim, if you had started talking to me, that might have made me fall down, and that probably would have been really good for you.
I remember too, just quickly, that Justin coming around for that one thing where he's like, "How are you feeling?" And I was like, "I need you to get the fuck out of my face right now."
Yes.
Because I'm about to fall and you're ruining my focus.
Yes.
Mike, I'm curious if there was any talk at Wonkus around, the first target at the merge. If either before the challenge or obviously after the challenge, I think we see a lot of that. But before the challenge happens, before Taylor has immunity, was there anybody else on the table, or was it kind of Eric from the beginning?
Just to quickly piggyback, that was one of the hardest challenges because everyone was so tired. It was hot. We were expecting a merge feast, didn't get anything. And then it got freezing cold. We're all trying to go to bed, and you say we have a challenge. So, by the way, that was intense, Justin. And one of the hardest nights by far in the game.
And the cruelest part of it all is that you made it look like we were standing on the field in the show. You can't even see the bricks. We just look like the biggest loser. We're like, all right, go stand in the field for 10 minutes. And we're like, oh, I can't do it. I'm done. I can't.
Like the bricks were so small, we were all about to pass out. Like none of us had any mental capacity, and we just did a challenge. But I think once we saw Taylor win that, I was like, this girl is a beast, but she can't be voted for. So like a lot of people were talking about Eric, and Eric had a bubbly personality. You could tell he gets along with people, strong competitor. So he stuck out to many people, but I actually really liked Eric, and I was like, I get along with him. Let me see if he gives me anything of wanting to work long term, if I could save him, because I knew me and you were kind of like tending to the fire all night. Remember that? Like it was like me, you, and Nick.
Yeah.
Trying like tending the fire. We couldn't sleep, and I was like, I kind of like this dude, but I knew a lot of people wanted you gone. So like, if you gave me anything of like, hey man, like I'm trying to work with Cam, do you like Cam? I would have tried to save you, but I didn't get that, and I wasn't gonna go against my tribe. When we had numbers to maybe get you out. But I think Taylor started to really emerge as a threat physically wise and socially, but Eric stuck out more from the majority of people of personality and physique. But we should have kept him. He's a great shield. Like, I don't know why we didn't vote like German or something there.
I'm curious about how much I'm curious how much the past votes obviously came into play there, right? So that is a factor in that vote. It's 5-5. You know that Kim, I think you at that point would have had 4 votes on you, right? Because actually Travis and I went back and forth on like, we don't count the re-votes. We don't think it's just the original core votes. So you'd have 4 votes. Eric, I think you had 2. Taylor, I think you had 2, right? So I think that there was, Taylor's now immune. Kim has the idol, knowing they're likely going to vote for her. So, like, is Eric just the safest option for you all? Did you guys think about doing something different, Kim?
I I just had a very strange feeling about Eric at that moment. And I mean that in the best way. That Eric is such a strong challenge player and such a chaotic social player that he was telling me that he wanted to work with me, but I also was like, this is somebody that has so much going on in their gameplay. And I think had we been on the same tribe, we probably would have had like an amazing alliance and taken it the whole way. But there was just that much separation that I was like, I don't know if I can trust this. And I think that might have been the vibe that everyone else was getting. This was a huge challenge threat. I think I say in the show that like I was watching in my mind like a just him winning challenge after challenge and we miss our shot. And that really freaked me out. And I also was just like, I don't know, he's really playing the game. And that felt scary. So I think that was just an easy first vote, considering we hadn't strategized all night. We kind of did it in that like 15, 20 minutes post breakfast sandwiches before tribal. And it kind of just, he was sort of like the obvious name to come up of like, this is someone to pay attention to.
Quickly, I just want to add, like, isn't it weird none of us strategized that night? Like, genuinely, maybe if people did, but like, I really feel like the majority of people were just so tired and drained from the game that nobody talked about the vote till the next day. Like, that's fascinating to me, but it's true.
I don't think we could. I don't think we had anything left in us. It was just like, get through the cold, get through the night, and hopefully get some food before we can like do the next thing.
Totally.
Eric, I want to come to you to kind of recap the round. Oh, sorry. Eric, your internet's a little laggy, so hopefully you can hear me okay. I want to kind of come to you to recap the round. Anything about kind of your strategy that night and the next morning, if you kind of, you talk about in the episode how you kind of know that potentially the votes are coming your way. You talk pretty openly about it at Tribal, which I do want to get to that as well. But anything about kind of your game that we've missed at this point? You're on mute now. It's very awkward for everyone, don't worry. I don't know how to unmute you. It's going to be great, though, when he gets here. Don't worry. It's going to be great. Well, all right. Well, while he figures that out, I'm going to go to you, Kim. You talk a little bit about how you weren't going to play the idol, or maybe you were kind of on the fence about playing the idol until Tribal, and you hear Eric talk about past votes and those kinds of things. So I'd love for you to chat a little bit about that.
Yeah, I really was not going to as a teacher, I like the hand raise, Eric. Yeah, I really was not going to. I think just like the first vote, had like a little bit of an inflated sense of confidence that I wasn't thinking people were coming for me. But David was like repeatedly trying to say to me, like, I think maybe you should. And then I know that like the series of events was that Mike went to David and was like, she should do this. And then David came to me as we're walking in. And then you can see like there's that awesome cut where you can see my face as Eric is going on that thing where I'm like, oh, okay. So they're paying attention to this. Like past votes are a thing. And even when I played it, I still kind of thought I was throwing it away. I kind of thought like I was about to play an idol and I didn't need to. And so it was extremely gratifying, although kind of at that moment I knew I was not going to make it much further. But I really didn't think in the moment that was going to be me saving myself, but it was. And it was an unbelievable experience to sit there and realize like, wow, I should be going home. But, thanks to Mike and David, I was there to last another round.
All right, Eric, now we'll come back to you.
I'm glad we got that part out first. This was a funny moment for me to watch back, man. First of all, I don't even know where to begin. That speech that I made about passive votes, I think I blacked out. I don't remember saying any of that until I watched it back. And in my mind, the fact that happened and that in the episode that I go out, John is like, I don't think they're thinking about the past votes rule. I was like, dude, what? How are you not thinking about this? Like, are you kidding me? Like, what, are you an idiot, dude? Like, what? How can you? This is like the one thing that we're all thinking about right now, right? So in my mind, I wasn't revealing anything, but obviously I like Keith nailed myself at that moment and feel pretty dumb about it now. But that was my perspective in my delirious brain at that point. And as far as going back to the merge, It's so funny because from my perspective, I'm like laying prostrate at Kim's feet, being like, I'll be in the minority. I just really want to work with you. I'm gonna flip on my tribe. Like, just tell me who to vote for. Like, that's it. And then, like, like, we're all big threats. We should work together. It like seems like a no-brainer to me. I don't know. Am I crazy? And to be rejected and to be given a plan that was like, I don't know, vote Mike or John. I don't know, whatever. So I was like, shit, dude, why is this not working out? I thought I was really making this easy for her. So I think it goes back to what I said about like really not doing a good enough job of having those conversations. Like Outlast was a big learning experience for me in that you really got to go out of your way, I think, and just accept the fact that you're going to be going off talking to people. I was a little too concerned about that. And from Kim's perspective, like didn't really have much of a foundation for anything. And so it makes sense that she wouldn't trust me in that moment. But the reason I voted for Kim was because there was clearly no plan coming together. And I was just surprised by everybody that Carlos voted for Kim and that there were 6 votes coming her way. So I just rambled a lot. That was my perspective on the merge. I'll turn it over to everybody else now.
Awesome. So Eric departs. We now have a clearer, maybe not so clear with Carlos, doing that vote for Kim. Kim, was it obvious to you that Carlos was the flip, or did he come to you pretty quickly to let you know that he had also voted with them?
He came to me quickly, but I think was already sensing that. I think by the time we were in the swap, I was realizing how low-key intelligent and clever he was at this social game, and the connections he was making and his ability to ride the fence in any given moment. And so I think that like I knew David, Mike, and John would not have done that, and that's just not what I was feeling in the moment. And so if anyone was going to flip, my sense was that it would have been Carlos.
All right, we do our counting challenge, and Carlos wins immunity. Taylor, how much did you have any idea that kind of your name was on the table for that round? I think you did say in your exit interview you're pretty surprised. You weren't really kind of thinking you were on the table, but did you have any indication it could be you?
Not really. I thought it was very strange. So like Carlos, I feel like is one of the main things causing my confusion, because he stole my vote at the swap, the 6 and 6 tribal. So he stole my vote, showing that he didn't trust me. And then after, I was like, no, I voted for Daniel. And I was very confused by that, because then he believed me enough, because I feel like a conversation that Nicole and I had about him voting for Kim, I was like, okay, he actually did it. So now he trusts me. And then the next round, he's the reason that Nicole flipped on me. So I was very confused. He's so back and forth with, he trusts me, he doesn't trust me. And I guess I wasn't really as aware of me being a challenge threat at the time. And then the last part of that was after the standing on the brick challenge, everyone got to go back to camp as they got out of the challenge. So obviously German and Kim and me were the last ones. So everyone was back there. We had 2 tarps. One was next to the fire. One was behind that one, away from the fire. And once the 3 of us got back there, everyone's already laid out, going to bed next to the fire. So me and German got kicked to the back of the tent or the tarp. And it was so freezing cold. I actually remember several times in the night getting up to go help tend the fire. Mike and Eric were definitely there, I remember. I was so freezing cold, and me and German were just sleeping next to each other. And then I hear, oh, you guys were cuddling all night. That's such a threat. I was like, how about you sleep in the back next to one person while everyone else has body heat and the fire heat? It was so unbearably cold, and I guess I didn't realize that was one of my downfalls.
Me and John still joke about to this day. We both saw them snuggling, and it's like the Leonardo DiCaprio thing where he's smoking a cigarette and he goes whistles there's something going on. That was Taylor and German. Since that, they were just a pair. They were the snuggle team. We were just they can't stay in the game. And I saw that. I'm like, okay. John comes up to me the next morning and goes, yo, you see Taylor and German snuggling? I'm like, yeah. He goes, let's get Taylor out. I'm like, let's do it.
One of them also said, I don't remember who said this to me, but someone brought up the fact that me and German had on like a similar looking outfit. Like we both had on black pants and like a gray hoodie. So us matching was also a thing. I was like, oh yeah, because I definitely planned to match with someone I don't know. So I was just very, I don't know. I guess I didn't realize all those things were going on because I feel like they were not really a strategic move or anything that I did. It just had to happen.
Yeah. All right, so Taylor goes. We have the first member of our jury. It appears, Kim, like Wonkus may be holding tight for a little bit longer, at least. Like, I think there was some surprise on the production side that after Carlos's flip and all that, you guys still stuck together, and kind of Wonkus was getting out another former Kano. We go into the night moves, kind of human chess type challenge. Very close, Kim. You almost eke it out, but German wins. Did you at that point? Did you feel the heat on you still? Like, were you still feeling like there was a chance that could have been you?
Oh, totally. Yeah. I think by the time the second, I have 3 lives at this point, like a cat, like there's twice I should have gone home. I knew I couldn't make it that much further. It had been so obvious that people were coming for me. And I was increasingly aware that my whole strategy, which I think is definitely one of my main regrets, was like trying to plant the idea that John had the idol, which I legitimately thought was going to create this sense of like protection around this core alliance. But I totally realized looking back that like he felt very targeted by it. But I think that was one of my like kisses of death, was that I was increasingly sensing that I had lost John. And I think without all 3 of my core alliance at this point, David, Mike, and John, and I think Mike at this point too was kind of maybe starting to waffle on me, which I mean, clearly. And I was sensing that too. And it was just like, okay, like my ship is sinking. Like all the people I've been relying on, besides David, I could just tell. I'm like, I think I've kind of lost everybody, and I know I can't make it much longer. So it was pretty clear.
Mike, I want to come to you and kind of figure out why did you? We hear about it a little bit in the episode, but why was that the right time for Kim? What kind of pushed you over the edge there?
It wasn't the right time for Kim. That vote was not only the hardest, but also the worst vote that I did in Outlast. In my opinion, I had David and Kim who fully trusted me, and I had Carlos and John that fully trusted me. And I wanted Nicole to go home that vote 100%, because as long as I have those 2 thinking I'm with them, I have numbers going in with a legacy. So I really wanted Nicole to go there. Once I found out John and Carlos were 100% going to go Kim, there was no point for me to vote Nicole. And I tried, and for some reason my brain broke. Like I just didn't have enough time to tell them this wasn't the right move, and they were so dead set on it that I knew if German and Nicole were going to do that, I gotta vote Kim too. But I knew when I casted that vote that like this could be the death of me, because I lost support from David and I was only relying on 2 other people. So like I never wanted Kim to go there. I had to go with the numbers, but Kim was a great shield. She was a great ally, and it's something I never wanted, but it happened. And not only did she get voted out, but I followed very quickly.
Yeah, I'm curious. We hear about a little bit in the episode too, how much kind of David cheering and hugging Kim when she played the idol. Like, how much did that truly? I mean, it seems like a conversation point a couple times. How much does that play into a game, right? You see how close they are. You see how excited he is for her in that moment. Yeah. That, for me, and it's a lot to try to push a storyline that way, but to me that's where like the light bulb goes off for John and Carlos to be like, that's a dangerous thing for us, right? Like it was such a public display,
I knew that Kim was always going to be more loyal to David than me, and I knew Carlos and John were going to be more loyal to them than me, but they needed me and they wanted me, so I was in a good spot. David really started to click and publicly talk to German and Nick. And that was scaring me, because if you're my good ally, come to me first. And he was really getting friendly with them. So I started to kind of like David's going to them more. And David and Kim were so locked that I knew eventually that's going to be something that I'm not involved with. So it made it a little bit more easy to vote Kim, even though I didn't want to do it. But David was really dictating his game with German and Nick, and I knew Kim was always going to follow that. So that was in the back of my head.
Got it. All right, Kim and Taylor, I'm curious. Ponderosa, right? How much did you two talk about what had happened in the game, and kind of how much information sharing was there in kind of the early parts of the jury phase? Taylor, do you remember talking a lot about kind of the happenings of the game?
I remember when Kim had first got over there, she was in pain, and I felt really bad. And she's obviously we're trying to do our cleanup, look fresh at jury duty. But I remember the challenge that was on tonight. So the where you pour the water, what is it? Touchy subjects. I remember touchy subjects, that one question where they all said that Kim was the best liar. I remember that was like she was offended by that, and I felt like it was like very uncomfortable, not because of what happened. I was just like feeling bad and not sure how to console her, because I was like I had no idea what was going on in her game. So it was just like a little awkward at first, but then I remember after that, as people start joining it, it got a lot better to talk about the game and things that happened. And that's when I realized that people were saying how big of a pair German and I were, which was crazy because I was like strategically closer to like Eric and maybe even Nicole. I just like bonded with German as a human better. So it was like interesting to see her telling me that from her perspective.
All right, Kim, let's talk about it. Touchy subjects happens, right? And the way the game's set up, the jury is kind of sitting tucked enough that they can watch the challenges and observe from the side, but can't get too involved. But I think, obviously Kim hears what is said. I'm curious, Kim, your perspective. I think some would wear it as a badge of honor to be the best liar, but some I think could also be offended by it. I can kind of see both sides. So I'm curious kind of what you were feeling in that moment.
I think my issue was that I think it's factually incorrect. I think that with the people that I was allied with, I was aggressively trying to get ahead of any sort of deception, to be like, hey, there's going to be votes on you here. I did it to Taylor. I did it to Lizzie, but it's not going to be on you. I really, obviously everyone lies in the game, to the people that you're going to vote off. But I tried so hard to the people I was allied with to always be honest. And so to have this entire group of people decide that I was the biggest liar. And it's funny because I don't even remember how many things I said. Clearly I was having this feminist rage moment, building, you can see it in my comments. I'm like, oh, I don't remember making this many comments about this, but clearly it was hitting me. And I think the biggest takeaway I have from the experience and from watching it is that I do think men get to play, and I don't mean to speak whatever, but generally men get to play this game in shades of gray, where they get to come in and you could be more of a challenge person or more of a social person, but lie in these things. And I think women are either weak or crazy threats. And I think that is not 100% of the time, but I think it's a lot of the time. And I don't think I played the game that differently than a lot of male players. I think you could compare a lot of my game to John's game. And I don't think anyone was calling John a liar. I think there's a lot that I was looked at as being more of a threat or more of a liar or more of whatever, that I don't think necessarily men that were doing the same things were getting that same kind of view. And I don't mean to use that as oh my God, I got out because I'm a woman, I got out because I didn't play the game good enough. Absolutely stand by that. But I think that there is just that much more of a hurdle. And I think this game in particular for me, I was feeling that strongly. I was feeling like I'm getting looked at for things that I don't think other people are getting looked at when they are doing just as much, if not more than me. And that was bewildering and frustrating. And that game moment was where it all kind of clicked. And it was enlightening.
Yeah. Yeah, it's interesting because I think from the outside, I was trying to think in my head, why would they think that, right? I was just because, I don't see everything. I don't know everything that's happening. And I'm like, maybe it comes down to the idol play solely, right? You didn't tell your alliance you had an idol, that could be interpreted as a lie, right? Because I was trying to justify it in some way. Why would everyone think that, right? So I thought that was really interesting. Mike, I want to come to you about the end of that challenge. We see it. It's hard to capture a lot of the audio of that. There's a lot of negotiations that happen towards the end. We get down to you, John, Carlos. There is a moment, right, where John has to decide between taking out you or Carlos, and then you get to make the ultimate decision of who gets immunity. So walk me through kind of that scenario, because I think I try to tease out the important parts, whereas you felt on the edge and you felt like you needed it more than John, and you were a bigger threat at that moment, or a bigger target. So going back, do you think there's anything that differently you could have done in that moment to change the outcome of that challenge?
Well, to simplify it, when they go, who's not performing to their potential, I wanted to put my name down and didn't. If I did, I would have won the challenge. So, like, to simplify it, I would change that. I think I put a target on my back negotiating with John and Carlos. Simple as that. Like, it showed them that like we were secretly working together. And there's a reason why all 4 people went, and it was just us 3, or 5 people went. And it was just, I don't even know, 5 or 3, whatever. And we were working together. So like, it was too obvious that those 3 were working together. And then John picked me and Carlos to go on reward. So not only did I ruin it with like too much negotiation publicly, John fucked up, I'll be the first one to say it, and chose us 2 to go on reward. So I think I should have just like downplayed it and be like, dude, like I need it more, go on Carlos, like simplify it. Because then I could go to David, and then I could go to Nicole and try to like negotiate. So we stuck out as a 3 pair from us negotiating. I still think that I needed it more than John. Selfishly, I knew voting Kim off was not a good idea for me, and that they were going to be coming after me. And I didn't know where David stood because I blindsided him and voted Kim. And I thought David was done with me. And it turned out that he was going to vote Carlos the whole time. I do genuinely think that we could have gotten a Nicole out and said, like, me, Carlos, John, and David, let's vote Nicole out. And I think that would have worked because David still believed in me. And that's why he voted Carlos. So to wrap up, what I'm trying to say is I think I just like was very paranoid, and I knew that I was going to be a target, and I did everything possible to win immunity, but it put a bigger target on me and Carlos and John's back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's so interesting. You know, obviously as a producer of the game, I don't think I could have built that any better in terms of kind of alliances being exposed, the wrong decisions being made about who to take on reward, right? Like you leave a group of 4 back that make decisions or stir shit up. Like from an outsider's perspective, I was like, this is great. I was just eating popcorn about it because it was like, you want those things to happen, right? And seeing the footage of John realizing like, oh, maybe I should have left somebody back at camp that I trusted that could like be taught, right? Like all those moments that happen were just really rewarding for me to be like, oh, this is the game, right? This is the game we all know and love. You got to make these decisions fast. He made those rash decisions that at least impacted his ally going. We'll see how it affects the rest of the game moving forward. But he loses an ally this round potentially because of that, right? I don't know if we can pinpoint it all on that, but it certainly I think was a factor. Mike, I'm curious about your kind of push of an idol at Tribal and maybe even earlier, kind of trying to fake everyone out. I'd love for you to kind of walk. I don't know if you were watching the YouTube comments. People were like, what? He has an idol? Where'd you get that? What happened? So curious your take on what you were trying to do there.
At the end of the day, I got told it was going to be me from Nicole, and I just had a feeling from once I voted out Kim, I go, I'm going to be next. I didn't have the relationships with German and Nick. I was working on Nicole, but I didn't have the relationships with those 2. And eventually that's going to come back to bite you. I didn't have the protection. I only had Carlos and John in my head. David was really scaring me talking to German and Nick all the time and not me. And I was ready to move on from David when he actually wasn't ready to move on from me, but I didn't know that at the time. So I was willing to vote David out there and go to Final 6 with a legacy and secure myself in the Final 5. At the end of the day, nobody was coming up to me at camp. Yes, I probably should have fought for my life more. I don't know why I really didn't, but I just had a weird feeling it was going to be me. So once Nicole told me that, I was like, fuck it. Let me just lie. Let me say I have an idol. In my mind, I thought I did a better job to bullshit and said that I had something. And the fact that they even took that risk to vote me. If I had an idol, if I'm telling the truth, at that point, it's a 50-50 chance. It's not worth it, right? Because I'm going to send somebody home. And I just wanted them to put the votes on Carlos and say, you know what? Let's not even take the risk on Mike. Let's get him next round and put the votes on Carlos. But they still put it on me. Maybe I need to take some acting classes. I don't know. But at the end of the day, nobody was coming up to me. I didn't scramble as best as I can. And Nicole told me to vote. So if I know the vote's going to happen, I'm not going to let it just slide. So I decided to cause some drama. And did it work out? No. But I went out fighting. That's for sure.
Some of my favorite footage of that tribal, that was when you tell them where you found it. You say, I found it at the original camp. You can see Nicole go, that's not true. That's not true. It's a bit like you can see them all start to whisper that, like, no, it's a bluff.
After the game, I realized I should have said, well, we got Dunkin' Donut or we got food at the reward challenge. And you know what, guys, there's something here. And I should have just whipped out the advantage, like the legacy clue, and be like, you want to vote me out? Like, good luck. Like I could have played it like a little better, but in the moment, you're kind of just like, you're just tired. You're scrambling. Yeah.
And I'll clarify, this doesn't affect kind of the focus on this roundtable, but I'll clarify something. So we did put a note in one of the Dunkin' Donuts sandwiches that was an idol clue that in the voting booth was an idol at the big tree that's there. That was like the one sandwich no one opened for a very long time. It just happened to be the one that you guys did not eat. So we were like, fuck, we have to put a note somewhere else. Like, we want this thing to be found. So we put a note behind the tree so that the group going back to the reward hopefully would find that. So David found that one. German found the one in the sandwich, which is why they both had the clue to the same idol. David ran to tribal while you guys were on the reward to get the idol out of the voting booth, which is why when German went to look for it in tonight's tribal, or the episode at the end of tonight, it wasn't there. He looked at the exact right tree, but it wasn't there because David already went and found it.
Amazing. Wow.
So that's, well, obviously I'll let them talk about it later on their roundtable that comes up, but I just want to clarify for any viewers that were confused about why German had a note and why David had a note and where that all came from. So Mike, did you know that David had an idol? Did you have any hint about that idol at all?
No, not at all. Not at all. And the reason why I was willing to vote David was because, honestly, he was a bigger threat than me. Yes, I was trying to downplay my threat level. I was in with everybody. People knew I was social. So, like, yeah, I'm a threat in a sense. But, like, David was a huge threat. And he had better relationships than I did. At the end of the day, that's why he stayed. But I really thought, even though I made a mistake and voted out Kim, me, Carlos, and John was 3. I really thought Nicole would realize David was a bigger threat than me. And I would move on at least one more vote, legacy 5. And I'm surprised she didn't vote David. It wouldn't have mattered because he played an idol. So, like, props on David for busting his balls after that, because the touchy subject was very telling, and he knew he needed it, and he went out and found an idol. Unbelievable. So I give a lot of credit to David for fighting for his life and staying another day.
Great. Another thing I want to mention, which I didn't, in the human chess challenge, Nicole was offered a note in a bottle. That note in the bottle would have been the first time that that would have been a clue. That would have been the clue that ended up going to the tree that David found. So Nicole would have gotten that clue instead of David had she taken that note in the bottle in human chess. There was another tile also that was never flipped, which would have been the one and final Outlast opportunity as well, which never got flipped. So unfortunately, we didn't get that. Poor game design. I was mad it never got flipped. I was like, how did we miss it? How did you miss that one tile? So that was annoying. But so I just want to recap that. All right. It has been a long time. I appreciate you all being troopers. I want to do one quick kind of lightning round of 3 final questions. This is how I've been wrapping every round table. Quick lightning round. If you look back on your experience of Outlast, what was your favorite moment? We're going to go in vote out order. So we'll start with Eric. Favorite moment when you look back?
Favorite moment of Outlast, man. Oh, that's tough. I think I'm really at my core a selfish person. So I'm going to say when I caught the bottle on its side, that really just makes me so happy to this day. So yeah, I'm going to go with that.
All right, Taylor, how about for you?
I think it was night 1, bonding over not being able to start the fire. We were there for so long. we lost the striker for the Flint, and then me and Eli and I think Nicole mainly were just switching back and forth for what felt like about an hour, trying to get a spark. That was a very bonding moment for us.
Great, love it. Kim?
I think definitely the box challenge with David. How random that the two of us got like paired together to do that. And we thought we were going to be against each other just to find out it was like a work together challenge. And then to win it was just incredible.
Kim, you look like statues. Did you actually feel any pain whatsoever or no?
No, you know what? I think we just got the right like angle in our legs. I think that we had that like 90-degree angle that like I think made it kind of like you're working with gravity. And it was actually helping my back, which was so messed up at the time. It was kind of digging it into the ground and like working on it. So it was just a beautiful turn of events, and it was a really awesome moment.
So
It was
that
really-
challenge actually improved your posture. It actually helped you.
It did. I'm actually a
amazing.
ballerina now. If anyone wants to come see me, I'm doing a really great job.
It was actually
Wow.
interesting seeing the strategies in that challenge where so many people were like spread apart with like basically just their toes were holding up the boxes versus you guys having like full flat feet. And I'm sure people worked their way out. Like I don't think anyone started that far apart, but I do think you figured out the right angle and the right way to hold the box to kind of have the longer endurance.
And we both realized mid-challenge that we were both like yogis. Like he's certified as a teacher and I've done yoga for like my whole life. And when it got to the point of like us like, oh, you can't have your arms and your back, I was like, oh, it's like boat pose. He's like, yeah, it's like boat pose. And we're like, oh, okay, great. We're here. All right. It was fun.
Wow. Can I give a tip to anyone who plays that challenge in the future? I thought it'd be really smart to coil my legs up like a spring in the beginning. I thought maybe that would make me not have to put any pressure on the box. That was the absolute worst thing to do. Do not do that. Kim is right. It's a 90-degree angle is what you want. I destroyed my legs, and I'm just happy that I made it to second place after that because that's absolutely the wrong approach.
Well, I love how Kim and David had like this unbelievable experience, like team bonding. You know, we won, and then Nick, my partner, farts, and me and him start dying laughing, and our box drops like 10 inches, and we can never recover. So I'm glad you had a great experience, Kim.
Oh, Nick, put on blast, man.
Mike, what's your favorite moment?
Honestly, I have two. I think one of them is when you have to stack the blocks and spell Wonkus because we were at each other's throats. Jazzy was very upset, and the tribe was just like divided, and we needed a win, and we just bonded together and won that, and like we genuinely hugged each other, like so happy, like we needed that. So that definitely stands out to me. And selfishly, just playing the game, like I love Survivor. I loved every fucking second, like not eating, not drinking, struggling, strategy, just like being out there playing the game was just a dream come true, and I didn't want it to end. It was just an amazing experience.
If you could have just said Outlast instead of Survivor, that would have been a perfect little like thing I could have stolen for an advertisement, but you ruined it, Mike. No,
All right, ready.
Appreciate
Honestly,
that.
just playing Outlast was the best thing I ever did in my entire life. There you go.
Perfect. That's great. Well, I'm glad it's rewarding to hear, and I know this sounds kind of weird, but that it was a struggle, that you were hungry, you were tired, you were worn out, because it's so hard to replicate that 26, 39, whatever day game in such a short amount of time. But we want to give you a little bit of that feeling, right? So, as weird as it is or sadistic as it is to say it, like, I'm glad you guys felt those things because we want you to feel that. We want you to struggle making fire at night. We want you to be cold. We can't obviously make those things happen, but I'm glad some of it did. Sorry, Eric, did you?
Yeah, I just want to add that a lot of people might think Survivor 26 or 39 days, like we're just out here for 2 or 3 days. Like that's nothing. But I think what you've proven is that if you cast enough wimps, you can replicate that same experience, because to us 3 days was like the same as 39 days to a normal person out there. We were struggling that hard. So I would attribute this to your good casting.
Perfect. I love it. Whatever works. All right, Eric, we'll start with you. Your biggest regret, or like the one thing you'd go back and do differently if you could?
I think just in general, I wasn't as funny as I could have been in the confessionals. I think there are a lot of missed opportunities, and you hate to look back with regrets, but I really think I missed a couple open goals. So I game-wise, I wouldn't change a thing. Confessionals, I could have done a lot better.
All right, Taylor, how about you? What'd you go back and do different?
I think I played pretty bad socially, like especially at Merge, and I didn't make enough of an effort to like verbalize the fact that I would have been open to working, like especially I remember wanting to work with Carlos, John, and Nicole, especially after Eric was gone. I didn't make enough of a effort to talk to them as well as Mike, David, and Kim. So I definitely regret that.
All right, Kim.
I think mine's a tie between whatever half-baked idea I had about planning the idea of John with the Idol just wasn't fleshed out enough and should have been better vetted with my group of allies. And also, and I mean this in the most complimentary way, if I had kept Daniel instead of Taylor, I think that would have been a lot. I think he would have been more willing to ally with me than Taylor was. And I mean that in the best possible way, because Taylor, you seemed like such the right person to keep, and then very quickly became a like huge threat after that. So I think that could have been a pivotal moment.
I think Daniel probably agrees with you on that one. Yeah.
You were right as well. Yeah.
Mike, how about for you?
I'd say probably two. I think the main one is me not getting closer to Nick. He was on our tribe swap and we voted his people out, but we stayed true to him. And then we're also, so like we spent time together, and then we were on the box challenge, and I've never just been like, dude, like, let me look out for you. You look out for me. Let's like just keep each other close. I don't know why I never tried to nourish that. And it didn't make sense because you could only play this game with people that you trust, but you need other people, not just your core alliance. And I never extended that out to Nick when I had the opportunity. And like Taylor said, people like her or German, I never got to know well. And obviously voting out Kim because I was in a great spot if Kim stayed, and I never really persuaded Carlos and John, whether it was the time allotted, but they ruined my game. So those two.
Great. All right, last question. Is there anything from your story or from your experience that you want to get off your chest that you haven't yet? What did we miss? Obviously, we only have so much footage. The edit only shows so much. Is there anything that we missed in your Outlast journey, Eric?
I think we've already talked about it for the most part. You know, it wasn't really relevant to the story, but I think Taylor and I would have worked really well together out there. Just didn't really do anything. And the only thing that I missed that I've already talked about is like my failed attempts to work with Kim. I feel like it looked like it came out of nowhere out there, especially at the merge. Like there was even a comment from someone. It was either like during the episode or during a panel, like, why didn't Eric like try to flip to the other tribe? And I was like, that's the only goddamn thing I tried to do at the merge. And there was stuff like there were conversations that happened before it. So it just helps you remember that these are always edited TV shows, and everyone always has like a much fuller, fleshed out story than what you see. So, you know, as dumb as we looked, maybe we were like only half as dumb as that in reality. Still very dumb.
Taylor, how about for you? Anything that we missed in your story?
I think I didn't really make it clear in my confessionals, but whenever Daniel came up to me and was like, "Oh, I saw you just won Survivor Angelica," I was so scared that moment on, because I knew if he told anyone, it was like over for me. And my whole thing was trying to play like I didn't know what was going on. And yeah, that was like very terrifying to me. And then another thing, after Eric went home, I remember there was like a conversation on the mat. Kim came up to me and seemed pretty mad that we voted for her, and I was like very confused because she seemed to be channeling that to me, even though she got 6 votes. So I think at that point I was like, okay, well, I definitely can't even think about working with her now, like it's over.
There is some confessional footage where Kim keeps saying, I wasn't trying to be a bitch to Taylor, but I just wanted to and I was like, and I don't think we caught the actual conversation on the mat. So I was like, I can't use that, but it's so good like that. I wish we had that moment. So.
I remember a couple people from production, like as it was happening, they all came rushing with their cameras, but they had just like missed it. And I'm also so awkward at confrontation. I think I was just like laughing. But yeah, at that point on, I was like, okay, well, definitely can't not go for her at all.
And it's funny you mentioned I was so surprised Daniel didn't weaponize the fact that you won before at the kind of early in the merge, right? Like he talked about being willing to vote for you and like you being kind of crafty, but he doesn't like just come out and say it. Just be like, she's won a game before. Like, yeah, I don't know if that how that didn't kind of come out much more.
I think it was because when he like first told me, he leveraged the fact that he had came in either like second or third place in Survivor Buffalo, which I was on production for like after he played. So I think he was like, okay, well, here, I know this about you, so here, you can know this about me. But I don't care. As soon as he said that, I was like, oh no, he's got to go as soon as possible.
Yeah. Kim, how about for you? Anything we've missed of your story?
I think the biggest thing is how seriously injured I was. Like not even halfway through. I have a pretty like serious existing back injury that got triggered in Tug of War. That I was trying desperately to like play as low key as I could until I realized I was dead in the water. And then it was like, actually, I'm like really impaired. Like, please don't vote for me. I can't beat you anymore. I can't do anything. But I was like in really, really serious pain for Tug of War on, like some like pinched nerve, awful, like just my whole back and leg thing. And that was pretty crazy. And had a lot to do with like all of my decisions moving forward, both like how hard I played in challenges to like who I felt like I could ally with, knowing that I was no longer going to be like a physical threat. It had a huge stake in everything that happened moving forward. And also that conversation with Taylor is so funny because I remember that too. And I remember specifically targeting Taylor because after I had stepped down from the pizza brick thing, being like, all right, I stepped down. Like, I really hope we can work together, which is why after that happened, I was like, hey, I thought we were working together. But I think that also goes back to like, probably should have started that conversation before I stepped down and assumed. But yeah, I think that's probably it. It was really fun. I had a great time.
All right, Mike, wrap us up. How anything we've missed from your story?
I don't even think this was on camera, but like one big thing of why me and John were close, and not to spoil a season that he was on, but like we were talking about his season, and I go, dude, I got your back. Like, believe me, like I'm not going to turn on you. And that was day one because he was talking about his past experience in LRGs, and me and him really formed a bond there of like, we're going to look out for each other. And that was never really discussed because it wasn't on camera. So it's nothing you guys did. And also, like, when your friend said I was boring, like, I could use this as, like, the Michael Jordan, like, I took that personally, but I did because this was my first game, and I was really, like, just wrapped up in the game, and I almost forgot, like, this is a game, but a show at the same time. So, like, I never really told the audience what I'm doing. Why am I doing this? Who am I aligning with? Let's spill some tea. Like, I was just like, yeah, I'm doing this, like, but, like, I need to explain my game better. And I want people to know me as a person, but also me as a player. So I've learned in my next game to just spill it all out there, be your true self, and like tell people who you are. And honestly, like the Kim vote out, I know I keep bringing it up, but like people don't realize like we love fucking Kim. Like me and John were like very sad she left. And we just respected her so much as a player, and she was just such a good player and a threat that like she went there. But I don't think people really know like how much everyone really respected and feared. I respected her, but like people on the other side feared her. But that comes from respect. And I don't think people truly got that in the edit. Yeah.
Thanks. I think Eric can give you some master classes on how to give confessionals and how to explain your game to the audience.
To say the least. Yes.
I actually wanted to say something about that really quick. I know we're wrapping up, so I'll make this brief, but obviously if anyone wants to talk about the video aspect, reach out. Find me on Instagram, Eric ELDR. Mike is such an effervescent guy in real life. You know, like you hang out with him and you have a big personality. I think from my experiences as a video producer at corporate like events and internal videos, there's so many people who just like aren't used to being on camera, and you don't realize the camera like sucks your energy away. You can sound very engaging in normal life, and it just doesn't translate on camera. So if you're looking to be a better personality or get cast more, I would suggest do audition tapes over and over again. The more you do stuff in front of the camera, the more comfortable you're going to be, and try to be authentic while also dialing it up a little bit. Be like 110% of your normal daily self. That's what I would always tell people for the company videos that I made. So hope that helps someone out there.
Taylor, for you, maybe like 150%. We know Taylor loves the camera. She would always message me like, I'm so sorry. I don't know how you're going to edit me. Like, how are you going to show anything?
Oh, yeah, it's awful. And it's like, I've played a handful of games now, and I'm like that every time. Like, I'm going to go into this and be so different. And I'm like, As soon as the camera comes on, I just get so nervous for no reason. But that is
I'm
definitely
sitting here.
good.
I'm sitting here in iMovie, like cranking up the volume as much as iMovie will allow on all of Taylor's confessionals and everything. I'm like, it just won't give me any more. Yeah, it's a good time.
I say Taylor, also another person you're when the camera's not trained on you, wickedly funny, super smart. It was so funny to be out there with you, and camera doesn't do it justice. That's for sure.
Thank you.
Camera did you all the justice in the world, though, Eric, just so we're clear on that.
I got a bit of a head start. That's all.
Well, I appreciate you all coming on and chatting about your journey. We're way over the time I expected, but hopefully it was enjoyable and your Mondays aren't too terrible. But you were such a fun group to have as a part of the game. And obviously, being our first cast, we were so lucky to have all of you a part of this as characters, as players, as people, and just supporters of what we're doing. I hope everybody will watch our finale. Obviously, this is going to go out the week of the finale, so this upcoming Sunday, but then obviously living on, it'd be the next episode in the queue after this will be the finale. So definitely stick around and check out how our final 6 do. We have 3 of our jury members here with Taylor, Kim, and Mike. Eric's still mad that as the first merge boot, he wasn't on the jury. It's okay. He's mad about a lot of things. I'm used to it. But very excited about the finale. A lot of exciting game dynamics to come into play as we head towards the end. Anything else anybody wants to say before we wrap?
Best
Great.
LRG out there. If you don't apply for Outlast, you're silly. The production team is unbelievable. Justin is the absolute shit. Loves the game. Apply, and let's get this game off and running. Let's go.
It's an incredible experience. It's so well done. Just as the best. It's just like a truly life-changing event. Absolutely go for it.
Yeah, it was like so well thought out and it ran so smoothly, and it is definitely the time of your life once you play a game like that.
Outlast was good. I liked it.
Thank you, Eric. That's great. Thank you all very much.
Justin has guns trained on all of us. Someone send help, please. Everyone was forced to say that.
We are very excited about our upcoming season this July, but we hope we'll get more applicants again for next year. We're locked in for this year, but we'll have another amazing dynamic cast who have very big shoes to fill, and a lot. Much of the reason is because of the 4 people on my screen right now. So thank you all so much for being a part of the season, for being a part of the roundtable, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Bye, guys. Love you guys.
Bye.